Welcome to today's lesson. Today's learning target is I can use drawings to understand how improper fractions and mixed numbers can represent the same value. So we've already looked once at improper fractions and mixed numbers on a number line, and we're going to use that number lines today to help us review and remember what we've already learned. But today we're going to add in drawings as well, because we want to have a real clear understanding of improper fractions and mixed numbers and how they're related, so that tomorrow we can learn how to convert between them, change between them, using just numbers without number lines or pictures. All right, so let's dig in. Here's our first example. All right, so what I see here in the drawing, we're going to look at the drawing first, all right, then we'll get to the number line. I see 4 squares in all, and I see 3 squares that are completely colored in. Each square is meant to represent one whole. So if we look down here, the number line, and we were to call this line 0, then this first square represents one whole. Over to here, that's one whole. So we could label that 1. And if we look inside this square, we see that there are 2 halves colored in. Right? So we could actually label 0, 0 halves, since we know we're talking about halves. And then we would have 1 half. And then we would have 2 halves equal. Let me back up. Let me erase that. I want to have 1 there. And I want 1 to be the same as 2 halves. They're all the same number, right? So this square is represented in this part of the number line. 2 halves. 2 halves, 1 whole, 1 whole. So let's keep going. We see a second square also with 2 halves. So this would be 2 more halves, right? So if we continue to label the number line, we'd have 3 halves, and then we'd have 2 or 4 halves, right? So now we have this much of the drawing represented on our number line. And if we continue on to the next square, we continue the same pattern. We'd have 5 halves, and then 3 or 6 halves. Now, do you see the 6 halves? Let's count them out. 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves, and 6 halves. So now I bet you can see where this is going, right? We have 1 more half here. That's a 7th half. So that would be 3 plus 1 half is 3.5. And that's this number here. Actually, let me back up. I wasn't doing mixed numbers there. We have one more half. So that would be 7 halves, right? Which is the same as 3 plus 1 half. This is also 3.5, which we can see here, 3 wholes, squares colored in, plus 1 half of 1. So we have 3.5 as one way to name this value, and we have 7 halves as the other way. And if we take a look at the number line, we see they take the same location on the number line, 3.5 and 7 halves. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at another example. All right. We see 3 squares in all. Each square appears to be broken up into thirds, and 2 of the squares are completely colored in. So that tells us right away that we want to move on this number line from, let's say if this is 0 thirds, we're going to jump right to 3 thirds. That's this part of the drawing. And then we're going to jump to 6 thirds. 3 more thirds, right? We got 4, 5, and 6. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 thirds. So let's jump to 6 thirds on the number line, right? So we've gone 1 whole. That's 1 whole plus 2 wholes. And now we have 2 more thirds. We have thirds 7 and 8. So we have 7 thirds and then 8 thirds. And 8 thirds is the amount of thirds that are in this entire drawing. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3, 7/3, and 8/3. Right? Let's see here. I'm going to back up. Okay, perfect. And we can also see, so 8/3 is one way to name this value. But we can also see that we have 2 whole squares, 2 whole numbers. There would be 2 here, and 2 more thirds. 2 and 2/3. That's the other way to name this value. So do you see the relationship between what we were doing on the number lines the other day and here now today as well? And how we can name a drawing like this in 2 ways, both as a mixed number, using the whole number part plus the fractional part, and as just a collection of thirds. Just count up all the individual thirds here. Let's try one more example. Oh my gosh, look at this. Slices of pizza. All right, so in this drawing here, we see that we have 4 whole circles that are completely colored in, and each is divided up into 3 thirds, right? So we have, let's see here. This is 3 thirds, isn't it? And this is, let's see here, 1, 2, 3. This is 3 thirds. That would make this 0 thirds, wouldn't it? Let's not skip that important step. And here we have another, let's see here, 3 thirds here. So if we added those together, that would be 6 thirds, right? And let's see here, if we go 1, 2, 3 more thirds up the number line, we'd land at 6 thirds. That makes sense. So, and then we have another 3 thirds, right? Which we can look here at 1, 2, 3 more thirds. And that would give us 9 thirds. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 thirds. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 thirds. They're all the same. They're just different ways of representing this, right? And then we could add another 3 thirds. And that would give us, let's see, 10, 11, and 12. And that would be down here, 1, 2, 3 more. So we'd have 10, 11, 12 thirds, right? And that would be the same as 1, 2, 3, 4 whole circles. 1, 2, 3, 4 whole circles. Wow. Okay. And then finally, we have our last third. Here it is, the 13th third. And here it is, 13 thirds. So 13 thirds is one way to name this amount. But the other way, using mixed numbers, is we could say this is 1, 2, 3, 4 wholes, right? So this would be 4. If we want to name them here, we can 1, 2, 3. These are all whole numbers. And that's represented here by our 1, 2, 3, 4 whole circles colored in, plus 1 more third. So we'd have 4 and 1 third, plus 1 more third. So 4 and 1 third is the other way to name this amount. All right, so today's learning target was I can use drawings to understand how improper fractions and mixed numbers can represent the same value. And we've done just that. We can see that any one given drawing can be named as a mixed number and an improper fraction. You are going to do this very work. You're not going to do the number line work. That was just for learning. But you are going to get a series of drawings that look very much like the drawings we've encountered today in this lesson. And you're going to name each drawing both as a mixed number and an improper fraction. Okay, some examples have already been done for you on the page. Look at those examples if you need help or ask me. All right, let's get to it.